just borrowing a few lines from a Filipino-American poet, Barbara Jane Reyes. This soothsaying, this hollering me, this lyric making me now a dazzling we.
We hope, we witness, we testify, we stand firm, and you cannot break us.
We are raw nerves, and we are fire. We rise, and in writing we restore our lives.
Characters. Narrator, read by Jasper. Monica, read by herself. Ira, read by Claire. Gwyneth, read by herself. Tonight, we center Kwentuhan, Filipino-specific ways of storytelling, conversations between Monica, Ira, and Gwyneth, intentional relationships nurtured across space and over time. Tonight, we weave their stories together, repeating a line from Barbara Jane Reyes, this lyric making me know a dazzling me. May we learn more about their journeys and how Filipinos come to call the Yukon our home. Scene 1, introducing ourselves.
I call them my sisters in practice. We are Filipinas in Canada working in the social services sector, with shared commitments to work and support fellow Filipinos, our kababayan, wherever we may be.
I'm Gwyneth Williams, full name Gwyneth Iola Villoria Williams. I was born and I grew up in the United States in Washington, D.C. My father's from Wales and my mother is from the Philippines. My mother's side, we originate from Nueva Ecija, and the predominant indigenous peoples there are the Aita. After studying in the UK, I worked abroad in many places, including Sri Lanka and the Philippines, and the United States. I then moved to Canada with my partner.
I'm Ira. I've basically lived here all my life. I was born in the Philippines and migrated to the Yukon in 2006 with my parents and have lived there or here ever since. And certainly, while I've had my temptations of leaving and going off to the bigger cities, it's really a special place to live.
The Yukon is a special place to live, she tells me, and Gwyneth, no longer seduced by some of the world's biggest cities, chose to visit here, then chose to stay. I'm intrigued. Most of my life I've lived within a 1-hour radius from Toronto. And so, with these budding friendships and a research travel grant in tow, I boarded 2 planes to land here in early February, deep of winter, to visit them in person.
Scene 2, what brought us here?
For my family, it's similar to a lot of immigrant stories that search for a better life.
A common refrain, if you want a better life, you come to Canada.
But in Toronto, we couldn't find meaningful work. We knew we had a couple of friends who had moved out to the Yukon, so we decided in April 2016 to drive out there. We were originally thinking we'd spend just the summer visiting.
6 years later, they're still here.
I've really dug deep into understanding my immigration story and what makes me me.
I've done some study and self-learning too.
I reflect back on my life, coming here when the Filipino population was little to none, seeing the community grow and blossom, recalling the challenges that I faced, my parents faced, coming to rural northern Canada.
Please continue.
I really admire how our Filipino community here has remained resilient. If you think about it, you're moving from a country where it's very collectivist and you're around people all the time.
Plus, it's really hot in the Philippines.
And then coming to a place like the Yukon, where it's winter 8+ months of the year.
So cold.
So very cold.
Where there's a new language, new culture, new society, new customs.
Filipinos are the most resilient humans. I know I'm biased, but there's a humongous population of Filipinos here in the Yukon. Such a harsh, cold environment, and yet they thrive.
My God, it's incredible.
It's incredible. I had no idea. I was just going out to the Yukon to check it out. It's the Wild West there, especially Dawson City, Trondheim territory. You really feel it. It's one of the most famous places for the gold rush, and you still feel that, really.
Sing song.
Freedom!
And sing song.
Like, you can do anything. You have to be able to know how to connect with people, to be able to thrive and grow. And that's what Filipinos know how to do.
That's what we know
Know
how to do.
Scene 3. Filipinos in the Yukon.
I would describe the community as very colorful and vibrant. We now have a Filipino restaurant and store. People are really trying to stand their ground and establish themselves here. Similar to what's happening across Canada, employment-wise, many are in the fast food domains, housekeeping, the medical fields as well. I'm not going to say it's very rare to see Filipinos in leadership positions. I think that's changing. I'm sure you've heard our first ever Filipino MLA was recently elected.
Yvonne Clark.
And we have a Filipino city councilor.
Jocelyn Courtenay.
I meet them in my first few days here.
I think people are trying to make those strides, but it's very common that for the first 5+ years, Filipinos are remaining in the jobs they originally come here for. They get a little bit more comfortable and then they might work up into higher positions. The Filipino community, it's small but growing, and I'm excited to see what's to come.
Whitney's seen the changes with my own eyes.
It's incredible.
My first experience in the Yukon with the Filipino community was in this tiny place of Dawson City, and I met incredible Filipinos. I first met Filipinas working at the daycare. Incredible, loving humans, my God. And then through my youth work with Tronda-Quichin First Nation, through the youth center, I got to know all the youth, the Filipino youth of Dawson City, and got to know their stories too. How they made it out here and how they're liking it. And then when I moved to Whitehorse, oh my gosh, I had no idea.
Totoo. I had no idea too.
It's a thriving community. Every winter, all the Filipino houses in Whitehorse, folks do it up for a Christmas lights competition. You can do a little tootle around and you know it's a Filipino house because it's got the incredible lanterns. What's it called again? I forgot.
Parole.
Parole, yes. And then they have this epic party that everyone wants in on. All my indigenous friends were like, what's this party, the Filipino community Christmas party? And I was like, oh, you come with me, we'll check it out. And there's karaoke too. Oh, that was another thing about Dawson City. The first time there was an uncle, there was a tito there who regularly would have karaoke nights, which is so fabulous, especially in the winter months when you need community. You need some fun. They just thrive. It just feels good. I've traveled and lived in so many places. I'm fairly comfortable with coming and going.
Making a life wherever it is.
I think that's really my Filipino-ness. It's so heartwarming to see that my community is doing the same here, and they're thriving.
We're out here, we're thriving.
End scene. Thank you, everyone.
Maybe give us another round of applause to